Aloha, and I just finished the first episode of Quake yet again, but this time on the new and improved Quake port that's on modern devices, on consoles and so on. And if you have the game on Steam, you also get it upgraded. And I wanted to talk about this version, say the pros and cons, and tell you guys what I think, and if the version is worth it if you haven't picked it up yet, or if you're thinking about picking it up on consoles. Because the Doom Unity port that came out last year, I believe, it's very similar in that sense. But thankfully, it's not in the Quake port isn't in the same state that the Doom port was, because the Doom port originally, when it first came out, if you guys don't remember, or some of you don't know, the game originally required you to be logged in to a Bethesda account to actually play, which isn't the case with Quake. The original Doom Unity port last year also had tons of technical issues. So far, I mean, I've only played about an hour and a half of it so far, but from my first impressions, the Quake port is great. It runs flawlessly. It runs better than I ever had expected. It's not filled with glitches or any kind of weird issues. The sound sounds fantastic. I'm not nearly as in it and in the know with Quake as I am with Doom, but from my understanding, I own the original game on PC, I played it on original hardware, I played it on DOSBox and through things like that, and now I'm playing it yet again on this port, this console port. I'm playing on Xbox One, but that shouldn't really matter too much. It's all the same thing in the end as far as I know. And through that, and that's the great thing. It runs better than I ever had thought it would be. And although I'm not super keen on picking up small things that I would be able to tell in Doom, from my understanding, from a casual perspective, it runs really smooth. I almost wonder if they speeded the game up a bit. The game feels extremely fast, and I don't think that has anything to do with them speeding up the game. I think that has something to do with the frame rate. I'll put something on screen here now if the frame rate has been increased. They did that with the Doom port, so I'm kind of having a guess that that's it. But anyways, it runs extremely flawlessly and smooth, and you may worry that, well, would the game be easy to play with a controller because of that? Would it be too hard to play with a controller? How easy could you really play Quake to begin with on a controller, let alone if it feels even faster because of possible frame rate increases? Well, thankfully they thought of that, and they added a few things to kind of help players that use controllers, but it's still, in the end of the day, it's going to be one of those games that isn't as easy to play with a controller as a keyboard and mouse. But if you're a person that's used to fast-paced games on consoles and using a controller, I think you can get used to it. I play a ton of Halo 5. I'm good with fast-paced stuff in terms of controllers. But if you're not, if you're not used to playing shooters at a real fast pace with a controller, or you're not used to a lot of turning, especially while also looking around, you may have a problem with it. But if you play Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, that kind of stuff, and you're used to using both sticks very fluently, then you shouldn't have a problem really. And thankfully, a reason why that's the case, more than just because of the frame rate, but is also because they added aim assist. And I know, not everybody's huge on aim assist, but the amount that they gave that's default is just a bit too much. Not by too much, not an overly large amount, but it's just a bit too much for me personally. But it's very welcome, and it's not too intrusive. Along with a weapon wheel that'll pop up, the game will slow down, and you'll be able to switch between any of the weapons that you have currently, and that's also an awesome feature. The auto aim is a little bit more than I'd like, but still not too intrusive. Definitely helps you aim, and with it, the game feels a little different than you would play on consoles. That and the smoothness of everything, along with some of the graphical effects, seem like the game just feels and flows a bit differently. I don't know if that has anything to do with the game running on Unity, which I don't know if it does. I'll check that. So it seems as if that's true, but I haven't found any confirmation of that. But whatever. The point is that it flows very nicely. There's a bit of auto aim, aim assist, you would say. Not auto aim, but aim assist added in to help alleviate some of the issues you may have with using a controller. But either way, the nice thing, of course, is that just like the Doom port, you get it right out the gate if you already own it on PC. So just play it on PC and buy it on a Steam sale for 99 cents, and you won't have a problem there. And I'm not sure, I kind of doubt you could play it on consoles with a keyboard mouse without having any kind of peripheral, additional, any kind of dongle or some kind of adapter or something, but nonetheless, you can still get on Steam and play it through keyboard mouse if you want it that way. But really, a controller is not really bad at all, as long as, again, you are more used to using a controller for games of this kind of nature. What's also great is that there's a number of additions and things that have been basically brought back to life with this port. Things such as the multiplayer, which still technically you can go on Quake World and play Quake that way, multiplayer-wise, but for the vast majority of people, it's just like with Doom is another example. It's one of those things where technically multiplayer was always available for these games, but having them on consoles, having them on more than consoles, but just plenty of different devices with multiplayer built in, ready to go, is a great feature to have, because not everyone's going to want to go on some website, download a mod, learn how to install it, install the mod properly, set it up, make sure that certain things on their firewall, certain settings involving their firewall and so on are all set up properly so they're able to pass through with ease and so on. That's not something everybody's going to do, but everybody with the game like this, like the Quake Remaster here, everybody with it can play the multiplayer. They don't have to worry about installing anything or setting anything up and so on. So the player base is already much huger than it normally would be with that. But along with that, there's also cross-play compatibility. Not later, not down the line. No, there's cross-play right now. Not to mention, it includes every expansion that the game originally got as well, plus a additional episode that was made specifically for this version, a completely new set of levels. I mean, that's fantastic, right? It seems like Bethesda really learned from the Doom Unity launch, right? People were pissed. The audio had skipping issues, or I forget if it was desynced slightly, something like that. I didn't pick up at launch. I was going to, but I heard the reviews and instantly went away, instantly fled and waited until it was fixed about 6 or so months later, and then finally picked it up. But this, right out the gate, has all the stuff that you'd want. Mod support, that was added way later for Doom. It took 6 or 8 months for them to do that. No, this has official mod support. And although, everybody's, different people I've seen on Reddit or whatever complain and go, oh, well, you could always get mods for the game. What's the big deal? Well, no, the big deal is that, it's the ease of access, and that anybody with the game, whether they're on consoles or PC, will have officially approved 100% licensed, ready to go mods that they can hit a button, wait 30 seconds, and have it installed and ready to go. Of course, you can get mods. You could always get mods for the game, but again, not everybody wants to deal with that. Not everyone can deal with that. And it's nice to have it on devices that aren't just a PC. So that's great. And there's even one mod that's available right now that I just installed, which is Quake 64, which allows you to play the N64 version of Quake, which is just crazy to think about, that we're living in a time where Quake is ported to modern consoles. You're able to play the N64 version. The graphics have been redone. I'm going to briefly touch on that in a second. They're not great, and there's a few things I'll complain about here in a minute once I go to kind of my negatives. But overall, it's fantastic that we're living in a world where you can play Quake on modern consoles now. It's fantastic. And better than that, you can play it basically better than ever. It's way smoother than the original version. I'm guessing, again, because of the frame rate that's been improved, and along with auto aim and being available on so many devices, including the Switch, allows anybody anywhere to play Quake, which is just fantastic, right? And it opens the door for, these accessibility options open the door for so many more people and so many more groups from all different walks of life of gamers to play Quake. Some of my issues with it, though, it's not perfect. There are small stutters in between loading and small stutters between deaths and reloads, but it's really nothing to take you out of the experience. But it's something I wanted to note because it is a small hiccup that could be fixed. It could be smoothed out slightly, but I mean, a majority of games have at least a little bit of that, where or a lot of games have at least a little bit of that. You know, you're playing Grand Theft Auto and you are hopping between the menus, and one menu is on screen for half a second longer than it needs to be. Little things like that. Along with that, though, the menus are kind of finicky, too overly sensitive. But really, the big thing is the graphics. It's really, for some people, they'll like it. Some people, they won't like it. Thankfully, you can turn all these different effects off, but they're not bad. But I really think it's, how do I word that? In aspects, it's a little too less. Like, there's not enough. Like, they could have gone the extra mile in ways, or they could have just kind of not have done it at all. I don't know. It's a nice feature to have. I don't have a big issue with it, but I could see people having an issue with it, so I want to bring it up. You know, it's personal preference whether you like it or don't like it, but and you can turn them off, but that's the thing. When you see them and you switch between the two, it's not a big difference. But the small differences that are made in terms of the in different anti-aliasing effects and certain things involving the lighting can be a bit much, some would say. And I think that they're kind of in a weird line, right? Because they didn't go the full extra mile where it's like the game was fully remade to look modern, which I'm perfectly fine with, right? I have no problem with that. But they also included, you know, certain things involving certain kind of modern lighting effects and motion blur and all sorts of stuff. And although you can turn all that stuff off, and some of it's off by default, which is good, it's kind of like, well, why'd they include it if they weren't going to go all the way? I'm fine with it. I think it's better than not having it at all, because at least it's an option. But, you know, it's something I wanted to mention. But other than that, it's a great port, right? The only question I have, when is Quake 2 and 3 coming? I'm excited for those to get the same treatment that this had. I'm super hyped to see more mods get added to this, and I'm so glad that they did it so well, right? Maybe there's some issues way later in the game that I haven't noticed, but from my first impressions, from playing about an hour and a half, 2 hours of it, this is what I got from it. This is what it is, and it's great. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you pick it up. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did or didn't, tell me down below. If you're going to pick it up, tell me. If you're not excited, if you didn't like it, also tell me down below. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Thanks for watching, and aloha.